George Clooney is joining us.
Mm. I thought he was just into tequila and mezcal.
Yeah, exactly.
And Nespresso, actually. Big fan of Nespresso.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, welcome to our virtual tasting for the Scotch Malt Whisky Society December virtual outturn in November. My name is Evan with Kensington Wine Market. With me are Robin Kelly Carpenter from the Scotch Malt Whisky Society of Canada. We will jump right into things here. I know we have a few stragglers, but hopefully you guys have your bottles poured. The lineup order was in the invite that I sent out, but just as a reminder, we are starting with Fragile Fruits and Floaty Flowers, followed by number 2 is 5 Spice Pineapple. After that is Pudding Whiskey at number 3. Number 4 is The Stage is Set. Number 5 is A Tasty Morsel. Number 6 is Parallel Bars of Sweetness and Smoke. And we will cap the night off with a Firefighter's Reward. So pour your drams if you haven't already. As we're going through, of course, we will do the lightning round to start, where we blind through quickly through everything, give our thoughts and notes on them. Keep a little bit in your glasses after that. We'll revisit each one and give you the missing information on that's missing on the bottle and on the pamphlet that was handily shared as well. So let's start right in with whiskey number 1, which is Fragile Fruits and Floaty Flowers. This right off the hop, when I was putting the lineup together, I must say that this one got me excited right away, because there's parts of it that remind me of the last month's first dram, the November one, and I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but it was fantastic. And
childhood baking memories.
Thank you. And it showed really well both first and after going back to it after the 7th dram, which doesn't always happen. It's
been a great seller, which I'm delighted to see, for that very reason that you talk about. Sort of the whiskey in the first spot sometimes gets overshadowed, but it's sold out in a number of places, which is great to see. But yeah, this is reminiscent of it, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely has those floral notes, maybe a little bit more chalky on the nose than I recall childhood baking memories being.
Yeah, not quite that buttery pastry thing, so fair enough. God, there's a pineapple reference. We were just talking about how much I hate pineapple.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of manure, but if I nose it in whiskey, it's okay. So
I'll get over it.
I don't like burnt tires, but in a Glen Scotia, it's fine.
And your tea.
Yeah,
that's
right. My Sunday tea.
Yeah. The lemon cough drops. There's a lot of lemony citrus on that nose too.
It noses fresh in a way. Like it almost has that sort of like laundry, fresh out of the dryer note to it as well.
Yeah.
Sunshine in a glass.
I just like the name. I appreciate some good alliteration. Fragile Fruits and Floaty Flowers. Fab.
Yeah, I do too, until I have to say it, and then it's usually an issue. Yeah, nice fruit right up front. Still has a little bit of that chalkiness on the palate, but not to the point where it's muting anything for me.
Then oranges? I mean, something citrus, but I think oranges.
Yeah, I could see where you're going with that. I'd go more into something almost like, not quite yuzu, but pomelo maybe, where it's a little bit softer.
Maybe.
Is it grape fruitiness to me also?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not a super sweet citrus. It's tangy. That lemony, grapefruity.
And then there's a really sweet, leathery note in the finish, which is kind of different, really unusual.
And white fruits, pears and green apples. It's really refreshing. If it were minus 30 out, I might have a different take on it. But since it's balmy Calgary winter weather, Cam, I don't know what it's like in your neck of the woods in Montreal, but it's beautiful here. That's a really nice starter on a warm winter evening. I can feel the heat on it. It reads the 57%.
Yeah, and it's got a little bit of sharp warmness going down, but nothing too crazy. Well, just because I'm going to try it with a bit of water this time through before we go on.
Oh, maybe next time through.
Chris Walker says sugar dusted hard candies. I can see where you're going with that. Maybe that's a bit of that chalkiness that I'm getting in there as well. And Cameron, we are starting with fragile fruits and floaty flowers. Sorry about that we didn't update you on that. I think water does not help the nose. It just gets a level too muted.
Okay.
Still get a bit of that laundry fresh out of the dryer, but it loses a lot of the fruitiness and floral notes. Oh, thank you guys for posting the lineup there. Actually, it does well on the palate though.
Okay.
A little bit more coming through, a little bit more nutty notes as well. Almost like into a beer nuts / praline note for me with the sweetness there.
Beer nuts, that's fun.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool dram.
I'm going to see where that is when we, yeah, it is a cool dram. I'm going to see where that is when we come back to it in a little while, how it holds up. But that's a really solid starter. That's nice. It's just really, really fresh and crisp and clean.
Absolutely.
And light and yeah, fresh. Yep.
Yeah, almost would have worked as a palate cleanser somewhere in the lineup potentially too, just with that easygoing style. But we'll see if that holds up or not. On to number 2, which is called 5 Spice Pineapple. I didn't give any
so far.
Yeah. I didn't give any notes on the last one, which was a second fill barrel. 5 Spice Pineapple is also a second fill barrel. 214 bottles from the Outturn, 60.9% alcohol on this guy. Well, that's cough drops, I think, was mentioned on that first one. And it has that sort of like syrupy tanginess of a cough drop on the nose.
Yeah, syrupy.
Honeyed. Quite a bit of spice in there as well.
I was just going to say that I was sprinkling some nutmeg earlier, and maybe that's why maybe it's still in my nose, but there's absolutely a spiciness going on here.
First eggnog of the season.
Actually, yeah, that makes sense. Going into the nutmeg and eggnog references, but also into a little bit of clove there for me as well.
A little bit of which?
Cloves.
I thought you said cloak, like Cloak and Dagger. Whew.
It's a hot one.
Feel the heat on that. Tropical.
Nothing like crazily going off the nose on the palate. Like they tend to stay together, kind of one-to-one in style. Like it still has that big pineapple note. Still has that almost syrupy cough drop style to it, even though it's hot at the same time. Still has a spiciness in there too, but it's really well put together.
Yep. I like the mouthfeel. It's coating, and it is thick in the glass. Thick like a cough syrup.
That leather on the finish is just, the leather and wood. Holy smokes.
It's sublime, isn't it?
Yeah.
A decent amount of oak in there for being second fill.
Yeah.
Added a few drops of water to this one just for kicks again, and takes to it quite nicely on the nose. It doesn't bring out a whole lot more, but just makes the pineapple more round and stuff, more rich.
Yeah, the pineapple is definitely on the nose. It's really well named.
Palate gets a little bit drier on the finish with water. A little bit more vegetal notes in there as well, but still works really nicely.
I can see that vegetal even without the water. I haven't added it yet, but it's sitting in the back of my throat on the finish, that savory earthy vegetal note.
Mhm.
Maybe with the leathery, woody. Boy, that's a really nice dram.
Yeah, you're talking savory and spicy. It's almost into like how they use okra in like Louisiana dishes and stuff like that, where you get the heat and almost that bay leaf like savoriness to it.
Herbal. The very end of the tasting note references satisfying glue and petrol. And I don't get either of those, which I not often, but do sometimes on
This
drams
particularly
like
typed
this.
spirit.
Drams like this.
There's a pretty
Little
big
bit.
hint for those of you that have the PDF files in front of you on the first sentence there too. But we'll maybe get into that more on the second round.
It's a there's a tiny little bit of diesel in there, I think. But,
Yeah, geez.
but I don't get any glue.
Wood glue used in
But I'm not
cabinetry.
have glue in years.
Interesting. As opposed to like Elmer's white glue from
That's right.
Elementary school
Right.
crafts.
Well, just my scrapbooking. You're familiar with that?
Your
with my
scrapbooking period.
Yeah.
Oh, that okay.
I think they called that COVID, Rob. The scrapbooking period.
Maybe.
Exactly.
It was everybody's scrapbooking period and sourdough starter period.
Yeah, but what do you put in your scrapbooks? You're not going anywhere. You're not...
I know, that's right.
Just blank page after blank page.
Yeah. This is another photo of an empty wall in my.
Okay, that was pleasantly surprising for me because I did read the tasting note ahead of time and it mentioned plenty of water and thyme. So to those of you in the room, I was telling Evan before we started that I poured this about an hour ago to give it that time. And so I wasn't sure if we were going to have a very different experience with this dram than you guys might. So
Well,
be interesting to get your feedback. But
tomorrow night we'll try it fresh.
Thursday night, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but
sorry.
Yep.
right, exactly. It might be very different because this has been in the glass for an hour or more.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll use keep it in your glass till Thursday, and we'll use the same glasses for then. See how much it opens up.
You might have to put saran wrap over it.
Yeah, the water and time thing is interesting, and from the little bit of reading I've done lately on rum and rum drinkers, a lot of people that are big into rum definitely go heavy on the water, often into the 50-50 like blenders they talk about in Scotch too, and whiskey. Probably because when you're talking about rum and the hot climate that it matures in a lot of the time, you're talking about some very, very high ABV levels. And we've seen that with a lot of the society rums that we've seen over the last while as well. Even this one over 60, but we've had 65s and 67s percent alcohol wise. So they should take to the water pretty easily because there's not a lot in there to start with. So
We released a few years ago, 83%.
So the very first rum waiver released, 80, yeah, ridiculous.
that was like strong
mint
like a lime or
humbugs.
something like that.
Yeah.
Mint humbugs,
Oh,
I think it was called, 83%. Yeah, madness. So, all right, so you've just given away that it's a rum, but I suspect most people in the room have spotted that.
Yeah.
Tasting note kind of gives it away.
Which one of these is not like the others?
That's right.
Diana.
Maybe it's all rum from here on. We don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, number 3 that we're going to be trying yet next is probably not a rum because the name on it is pudding whiskey. It is a cask finish. Started its life in an ex-bourbon hogshead. It was finished in a first fill Oloroso hogshead. 260 bottles from the Outturn, 53.1% alcohol.
So just for clarity, I think, in the UK, the word pudding is used interchangeably with the word dessert. When you're at a restaurant, the server will come up after dinner and say, would you like to see the pudding menu? Or would you like a pudding? So I think probably in North American terms, this would be called dessert whiskey.
Mm.
Oh, that's rich.
Yeah, that makes a bit more sense. I was trying to get the pudding reference in there.
Yeah, and I figured that might throw a few people, but yeah, treat it like dessert whiskey, which I'm going to guess maybe is a reference to what is going to be maybe a sweetness.
Yeah.
Dessert. Yeah, dessert in a glass,
yeah.
maybe. It's not
It
a
definitely has,
big cloying nose.
yeah. It's, for me, the nose is Grand Marnier and marmalade, right off hop.
Orange all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the society's notes go in a lot of different directions, mentioning treacle, buttered popcorn, Black Forest Gateau shoe polish, sultanas, black coffee with sugar, and walnut ice cream.
Oh, the palate is tannic for sure. That's drying. And the sides of my mouth, but I'm salivating. That's very tannic. Not a big, sweet, cloying sherry bomb at all.
No.
Mm.
Again, some of that herbal savoriness to it.
Yeah, leather and spice.
Mhm.
Definitely
Really
get the
tannic.
savory notes there. Looking at the society notes, they mentioned water brought peat liqueur. Is peat liqueur a thing?
It should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I've never
It's
heard
what you do a depth charge with your iron brew, right? It's peat liqueur.
That should definitely be a thing. It's interesting. On auction sites, every once in a while you'll see a really, really old society bottling pop up that'll be a liqueur. Like over the years, they've dabbled in liqueurs, and I feel like I've seen
Really?
a Highland Park liqueur.
Wow.
And I've never gotten around to buying any of them, but they do pop up from time to time. So a peated liqueur may very well exist in the society world.
Mm-hmm. So water brings out a bit more red and dark fruit notes for me. It goes into the sort of the raisin-like notes as well.
Oh, really tannic for me. Just dries out my whole mouth right away. Whew.
Yeah, still drying with water, but not as drying, I would say.
And a bit of a mentholy,
yeah,
clear your sinuses kind of thing.
I think that's a reference to tea tree oils, which I get on the nose.
Oh yeah, and camphor it says too. Yeah.
Yeah, this is, you rub it on your chest when you go to bed and helps your sinuses.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's tonight's homework.
That's right. Or helps with hair growth on your chest, one or the other. I'm not sure which one.
Okay, so I was expecting, just again, based on the name, sort of just a big traditional sweet sherry bomb, and it's not that for me at all. It's really, I hate the word, but it's really balanced. It's the drying, but the spicy sweetness of it.
Even knowing which distillery this comes from and seeing the casks involved, I didn't look at the society tasting notes, but just out on the name, even though I didn't know pudding equals dessert when I set the order, I remember when I sort of laid everything out for my first run through, this was way further up the line, and brought down quite quickly as I tasted through things.
Yeah.
That's why I'm always so surprised when you send me the order, because I have, you on the sitting opposite me is our big whiteboard of all our outturns, and it's all yellow stickies and moving things around. And, I place things in the order more or less based on flavor profile and where I think they're going to be in the lineup. And then you send me your order and I'm like moving things around and I got it totally wrong.
Yeah.
Cause we never tried before.
All of a sudden you're like surrounded by red strings on thumbtacks that are going from to other parts of the room, and
exactly.
It's just one big conspiracy theory. It's all connected.
Sure it is.
Yeah. Okay, on to number 4. The stage is set. I gotta say, I really like the name for this one, given the distillery that it comes from, because I have a little bit of a story that I want to share with that when we do the reveal.
Ooh, fun. Okay.
So this started its life in ex-bourbon hogsheads. It was finished in a first fill Oloroso ex-bodega butt. 394 bottles from the Outturn. Pardon me, 56.3% alcohol.
A little drier on the nose for me, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And maybe what I mean is that there's a little bit of a dustiness to it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
for two
definitely.
fun, basically sherried whiskeys side by side, this is drier on the nose, perhaps even
Yeah.
drier on the palate.
I can see where you're going with that musty dustiness. And it's got like,
Yep.
nose reminds me of chamomile tea and pickled ginger, like you get at a sushi restaurant right now.
Oh, wow.
They know all that, right?
Yeah.
Another one that's
Right.
quite dry on the palate as well.
Yep.
Well, that's pretty nice. That's a great whiskey. Holy smokes.
Yeah. Leathery
I
seems
think
to be the calling card for a lot of these.
it's interesting because we've talked about others being finished. This is actually it's more than one hogshead, because it's hogsheads. So it's a couple of different casks into a much larger vessel, which is a butt. Because moving one hogshead into a butt would not give you 394 bottles.
Right.
Yeah, just interesting how the HQ has done this one.
Yeah, I
terms
agree.
of
And
combining a couple of casks, actually.
Ultra
so I don't
small
have the
batch.
reveal. I don't have the reveal in front of me, so I don't know the at the bottom it says at blank years of age. I don't know how long that is, but I was wondering if it was a longer second fill or second maturation just based on the bottle numbers, because you would expect to get more out of that if they had filled that Oloroso butt up all the way, which I assume they would.
Well, yeah, it depends. Yeah, if they were a little bit older, you might only be filling 160 liters from each hogshead, which gives you 320, which is not far off, what you get for 394 bottles.
But it says hogsheads plural. It doesn't say two.
Exactly.
It does at the bottom. We combined two
Oh, it
casks.
does say two. Pardon me.
Yep. So two casks got thrown together and then put into the butt for X number of years.
So it wasn't like the re-racking of like a Billy Walker version of re-racking where you make sure that that cask is absolutely filled to the brim when you both re-rack and then also release it bottle wise as well.
No.
Michael, the sherry feels really nicely balanced on
really
this one, though. Yeah, this is,
Mhm.
boy, it'd be interesting to see who of these two, which people prefer. They're both really good. This one's particularly nice.
Yeah, but they're not.
Yeah,
they're not
I don't
pouring
have a
sherry
vote
bombs.
set up, and we usually don't do votes on this one. But if you guys want to chime in and just tell us first time through, what's your preference, putting whiskey or the stage is set?
I thought we were going to get two sort of big, almost plastic sherry bombs, and neither
Nope.
of them are, which is nice, because the sherry bombs can be challenging sometimes. You kind of you may only want one. I would have more than one of these because they're not that cloying and sweet. So these are a nice respite from the traditional big sherry bomb.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's been one of the cool things that I've seen from the society over the last year plus is that we have had sherry bombs, but we've had just as many sort of intriguing and idiosyncratic sherried whiskeys as well, where they don't kind of like just run to the overcooked sort of side of things.
Yep. Yep. Where do we have? So Chris prefers previous one. Michael's stage is set for me. Andrew prefer the pudding whiskey. Yeah, I mean, pudding whiskey. I figure they're both going to get a number of votes. They're both great whiskeys.
Just added a bit of water to stage's set, and it hasn't really changed much on the nose.
Okay.
It goes more nutty and waxy on the palate, more dried fruit notes coming through. Gets a little, actually, a lot of that dryness kind of softens up and rounds out in style too.
Pudding has a savory
so far
to balance the sherry. Yeah.
Just my preference so far is stage is set, but I'm looking forward to going back through both.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, it just may change.
Absolutely. Well, let's go on to number 5, which is called a tasty morsel. And I think this is the one that
really messed
you.
me up. This is really where you messed me up with the lineup. I'm like a JOV, juicy oak and vanilla, a JOV this far in the lineup behind the 2 sherried ones. I was like, what is Evan on? I know he's getting over a cold. This is crazy. So I opened this when I came home with the tasting set, and I had a wee sip, and we both did, and we thought, okay, this kind of makes sense where it is in the lineup.
Yeah, so this is, we would assume, probably on the younger side, based on juicy oak and vanilla, probably a fairly active cask. It's being a first fill PX sherry butt. 584 bottles from the Outturn, for the Outturn, 61.6% alcohol. It's interesting how this is a first fill PX butt, and the first thing the society says in their notes is pleasant, soft vanilla aroma, which is not PX. That's not usually what I think of from PX. That's for sure.
Nope. That is we've skipped ahead to trying it already. That is absolutely a tasty morsel. Holy cow.
Yeah, no kidding.
And the 61.6%, if that's what it says without my glasses, that's there. That's definitely there.
Yeah, it has heat, but it's got plenty of balance too. It has this. I've talked about this, and this might give away a bit, but this distillery tends to have cheesy notes to it for me, and there is something very sort of like Alpine cheese meets like Emmental, or and then the palate even goes into like a more ripe Gruyere, where it goes into those fruity, funky notes at the same time.
I'm picturing Swiss cheese, because Swiss cheese has a
totally
pungency to it almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, God, you're right with the cheesy notes. And this may give it away, but you said that last month too.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pay more attention to that.
I see the name of the distillery, and I'm just looking for it now. But this is one of the drams where I probably could have gotten away with putting Hawkins cheesies on if I was doing the notes, and they would have been fine with it. It's more of like a white cheddar or into a Swiss, though, I would say, than that.
Okay, so the first time we tried this, maybe last week sometime when I came home with the kit, and we were so startled that it was so late in the lineup.
Yep.
We tried it, and we both got a little thread of peat on it. I'm not convinced I'm getting that tonight, but there's definitely
getting more leather, I think, which you know, it's easy to confuse with peat, but there's a leatherness there, but I'm not sure I'm getting peat.
Yeah, I'm not getting peat this time around, and I didn't get it when I first tasted it, but it does have an earthy spiciness along with that leather note that sometimes there are certain distilleries where the peat evokes that more than a smokiness. Like thinking of a specific Orkney distillery that gets a lot of that sometimes.
Yeah, Michael says the C note shows I don't have my glasses on. CSEA, the C note shows for sure. Yeah, there's a
agreed.
Yeah, seashore kind of salinity, brininess.
Yeah, it's not a C note. It's just the salt wash brine that they used on the cheese.
On the cheese.
Yeah. Going more into aged Parmesan or Asiago. That is definitely a tasty morsel. A really cool dram.
Is it ever? Wow.
Okay,
and you had it, and
six.
I just wanted I just want to ask, and your reasoning for putting it there ahead of the two sherried ones was because you said it was big enough, and by big, did you mean the robustness of the flavors, or did you mean the ABV?
Yeah.
Like, where was your head when you were setting this
So
lineup?
big enough in two ways. One is definitely the richness on the palate. I think overtakes everything else from the two previous sherries, and the sweetness of it actually too, compared to the two dry sherried styles that we had recently, just kind of adds to that richness factor.
Cool.
Okay, on to parallel bars of sweetness and smoke. This started its life in ex-bourbon hogsheads. Refill bourbon hogshead, singular, was the finish. 19th of September for the date. 330 bottles for the Outturn, 55.7% alcohol. Not tremendously big or upfront on the nose for me.
It's a very quiet nose. It's really quiet and elegant. You have to work for it.
Yeah, definitely has that chamomile tea note again for me.
I get a bit of tarry rope on the nose.
Along that lines, there's like the aftermath of a fisherman's friend too.
What is the aftermath of a fisherman's friend?
It's like somebody's breath after they've had it, essentially. It's not like you're having it yourself.
So
It's
everything else,
friend breath.
everything else that's on their breath too.
Yeah, it's secondhand fisherman's friend.
Oh God. Yeah, it's quiet, that nose.
Oh man, really cool palate though. Like starts like honey and floral, goes into this earthy, spicy build. Definite beat on that on the palate for me.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
Really elegant. Really elegant.
Totally. Yeah, Graham says Pete creeps in. I totally agree.
Super subtle. It's just quietly building in the back.
Pete creeps in would be a great name for a SMWS bottle from this distillery too.
Well, there's your after tingles of eucalyptus cough medicine.
Yep.
Evan, in the bottom of the tasting note.
And menthol cigarettes, because again, there's some of that, eucalyptus menthol-y, like we had in the earlier one. But the sweetness just kind of sits there.
Yeah, Society mentions hickory smoked sweet cured bacon, honey glazed prawns. I can see has a little bit of like not cream of mushroom soup, but like a clear mushroom broth, like that sort of like musty but sweet at the same time. Oh, I'm gonna add a bit of water to this one. Just
get the blackberries too in the nose.
Yep, the blackberries.
Blackberries,
yep.
Cool.
Which is one of my absolute favorite notes in a whiskey.
Michael agrees with me, getting a touch of mushroom umami. I love using blackberries on tasting notes and nosing notes. For me, this is a little bit into the peak of my brain, but it is it's the cheat note. It's what you say when you can't find a dark fruit note in there, or you can't label it, because blackberries are so soft nose wise that people will just go like, oh yeah. If you say cassis, it's more evocative, but blackberries you can get away with.
But they're quite noticeable. It is quite a noticeable note.
It's a distinct scent.
Yeah,
which is why when I pick it up, I'm so delighted, because it's quite distinct, and I just love it.
Yeah, you don't get it very often.
So maybe it is more cassis almost when it's really blackberry forward. I'm thinking of an Irish whiskey we had a few years ago that I think had blackberries in the name, maybe.
Yeah.
And was just all blackberries all day long, and it was fantastic. But I can see your cassis reference making sense too. Sort of blackberry extract, right?
Yeah, not quite syrupy, but going in that direction. or more concentrated at least. Water didn't change the nose too much. Palate got drier, but even better than it was. It tastes the water really nicely for the palate, in my opinion.
Could it be black currant instead of blackberry?
There you go.
Black currants.
I don't know. It's whatever your palate tells you.
I've had lots of blackberries in my life. I'm sure I've had a lot of black currants.
No.
Could I pick out the flavor of black currant? I don't know.
I don't think I could.
I don't know. There's a good test.
Mm-hmm.
Decent amount of tannin here as well. Cassis is made from black currants. Oh, see, in here I thought it was made from blackberries. Chris, you are a wealth of information.
Okay, well, we'll come back to that one. Let's go to the last but not least of the night, which is a Firefighter's Reward. This is another cask finish, started its life in an ex-bourbon hogshead, finished in a first fill PX hogshead, 235 bottles from the Outturn, 58% alcohol.
Barnyardy. It's like the barnyard is smoldering.
Well, it's someone's cooking bacon in the barnyard, I think. For me.
That pile of wet leaves that you sometimes see on rural properties just smoldering and burning. Oh, that's a big pallet.
The nose reminds me of if you ever order the burnt ends at Hayden Block as well. Almost like into like espresso grounds there too.
Oh, that's a great nose.
Wait till you get to the palate.
Oh,
wow.
This palate is going to knock some people out.
Licorice and tar for sure.
Yeah.
And Andrew, way too much smoke for my taste. Fair enough. Fair enough. There's nothing subtle about this one.
So there was, I can think of another independent bottling from this specific distillery from a different independent bottler that was around 20 years old. I think this one's probably younger from just going from memory, but that had almost the exact same palate, except it was a little bit ashier in style. But this is one gorgeous dram.
I like the finish of hairspray note. I mean, that's hairspray smells of all kinds of different things, so that's pretty vague.
Yep.
What brand of hairspray?
I'm gonna have to rely on that.
I think they were actually talking about the ending of the movie Hairspray. That one.
That's like, you know, having a piece of chocolate in your mouth around a bonfire and then the smoke just blows it in your mouth.
Yep.
And
yeah,
you just get
there's a little bit of there's a bit of that s'mores note going on because of that. Michael says reminds me of a charcoal barbecue. Chris is tied with two others for favorite so far. Gonna add water this round again.
Oh yeah, that's a beautiful balance of sherry and peat, with the peat winning out, but not overwhelming those sweet sherry notes.
With water, the nose goes, it's like you've exited the barn and you're entering the field because it goes much more into like fresh grain notes in a cool manner. Which is wild because usually when you add water to smoky peaty whiskey, especially sherried ones, I find it gets even funkier.
Okay, I'm gonna throw a little water in right now since we're at the end. And
yeah, that takes the water just fine. I think I do prefer it without on the palate, but it's darn good.
it's less of a punch in the face as it was when I first had a sip. And the peat comes a little bit more slowly after the water, but it's there. It's building at the back. Whew.
Yeah, I think I prefer it without, but
yeah. Yeah, the pellet, I prefer the without. The nose works both ways in my opinion. Yeah, the peat itself and the smokiness is just like coming in on a tidal wave that's crashing against rocks in a cool manner.
Yep. Oh, yeah, it's just filling the sense of smoke is just filling my mouth. The name is so curious, A Firefighter's Reward, because it just made me think about this past summer and how the whole country was basically on fire. And I have to wonder, would a firefighter who's been out in the bush or battling a 5-alarm house fire or something want to go home and drink
Yeah,
basically what they've just been fighting? I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting.
yeah. Is this likely to give them like happy memories or PTSD at this point?
Is this triggering?
Yes.
Please, if there's a firefighter in the crowd, give us your thoughts. I'd love to know. Travis Watt up in Edmonton, I'll ask him.
Yeah, that's right. I think he likes the smoke, so it hasn't hurt him too much yet. Okay, let's go back to number 1 for the review.
Oh, have a sip of water, clean your mouth.
That's right. Yeah, it was definitely more on the dry side for not just our commentary, but for the whiskey itself. Okay, so back to
fragrant.
See if I can do this alliteration now. Back to fragile fruits and floaty flowers. How's it holding up?
Oh, that's a very perfumed nose now. It's very
so floral.
Yeah.
Yep. Beautiful, really floral. Rose water.
Yep. It's like dewy spring meadow.
Mm-hmm. Still so clean, and that laundry detergent thing, almost dryer sheet. Floral. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. This I find is more intense now.
Getting a touch of cherry on there now too, though. Personally.
Oh, that's a beautiful nose. I feel like the citrus has calmed down a little bit and we're just more floral all the way around.
Yeah, I am getting a bit more fruit though, like that cherry note. I'm getting a little bit of
get the cherry,
pears on the palate. Almost into like a pear juice or pear nectar, where it's just got that residual sweetness that sticks with me.
Water brings out rosewater scent, lilac scented grandma doily dust. Doily dust, yeah.
So is that doily because grandma used it as her duster when nobody was around, or?
That's beautiful. That's held up.
Okay. For the reveal on that one, we are not in Speyside. We're in the Highlands, shockingly. It is 14 years old, from the 31st of January 2008, and this is Scotch Malt Whisky Society 70.53, making it the 53rd cask from Belle Blair Distillery, if I remember correctly. And Kelly, you mentioned that this is a sister cask.
Yep, to something from August called Cherry Chocolate Truffle Oil, 70.49.
Yeah, man, I wish I still had some cherry chocolate truffle oil around, because that one, from memory, it almost seemed sherried, even though it was ex-bourbon. To me, like it was a bit more of a deeper, darker dram, almost did get into Black Forest cake notes, which I think may have even been mentioned on the tasting notes on that one. But this is a cool companion dram where you probably want to start the night with fragile fruits and then go into the cherry one after that. But very cool that they're sister casks and do share a lot of the same DNA, but go in different directions.
Well, it's interesting that the other one has the word cherry in the title, and then you commented now on picking up cherry in this, which makes me think that I would love to try their new make. Are there?
Yeah.
You mentioned totally. The DNA. So are there cherry notes in their new make spirit that's just coming through regardless of the cask?
Yeah. Yeah. It's spoiler alert. Their new make is actually Kirsch. The cherry note could be coming from ex-bourbon barrels too, because that's something that is sort of in the DNA of bourbon itself, whether it's coming from the cask or not too. So
yeah.
So price on 70.53 is $201.99. I will share the link in here. It is live now if you guys want to purchase. And let's go back to number 2, which is 5 Spice Pineapple.
Pleased with that one. That's really great little whiskey.
So I did say rum on the last time around, so I did let the cat out of the bag on this one. Definite lighter fluid notes and sort of like melting plastic notes that I get on rum a lot of the time that I get on this as well.
See,
in a good way.
See, and I don't know. I'm not necessarily getting those, and I don't know if that's a result of being open in the glass for probably by now about an hour and a half. I will watch for this on the in-person tasting on Thursday. For me now, this has gone very brown, sugary, toffee, maple syrupy. There's almost a lot of sherry cask notes happening there. And I'm just not getting that petrol and diesel glue reference that is so common on rums.
Yeah,
it's delightful.
I get a leathery maple syrup on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a nice, I think that's a really nice transition dram for whiskey drinkers who are trying to try out rum. You know, because it's not super diesely and so on. It's very whiskey-like, but with some of those underlying rum notes.
I get an industrial feel to the rum. I'm getting some sort of fuel note. Yeah, okay, so it's there for you guys, yeah?
It is there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not as, you know, in your face as some rums are.
That's a beauty. We've lost Evan, or I should say he's muted. We've not lost him.
Sorry about that. Sorry, still here as long as you guys can hear me now. I was muted.
Yep.
Yeah, I was saying that the fruit note on this one kind of veers right into the that sort of gasoline / lighter fluid note where it almost masks it with those tropical notes for me. Still has that nice light herbaceousness to it as well.
Yeah, there's Chris saying almost like lighter fluid on briquettes before you light it. I get it. Yep, for sure I get it.
So this is Scotch Malt Whisky Society R2.19. 2.19 for rum. It is 18 years old and from Guyana. Am I saying that right? Guyana? And it is from a distillery that was first, or the coffee still that was first installed in 1880 at the Enmore Estate in Guyana. Is that Diamond Distillery, or am I getting it wrong? Yeah.
Yep. No, it's Diamond. Yep.
Yeah. So Diamond is one of the surviving distilleries on Guyana. There's a few, but Diamond Distillery, what they've done over the years, which is pretty cool, is as other estates have gone under, they've actually purchased or obtained the stills that they used to run, including this super old wooden still. And I don't think it's even the own wood. I think they have another wooden still as well, if I remember correctly, on premises that they use as well. They have multiple different stills that are named, and their distillate styles are named usually after the distillery it originally came from, or the estate it originally came from as well.
Yeah.
So price on this and more rum is $217.99.
That's a beauty. That's really going to make your Coca-Cola sing.
No kidding.
How dare you?
You guys can laugh at me for this, but on that note, there is a local rum distillery called Romero Distillery in Calgary. My wife and I joined some friends camping with our kids the other, well, back before it was winter.
Michael's following this.
Yeah. And we got some Romero Distillery rum Cuba Libras, RTDs, essentially ready-to drinks in the can, just because one is something that you didn't have to put together, and they were fantastic. Like so well balanced, so well put together. You got the lime juice, you got the Coke or the cola, and the rum there, and it was enough where it wasn't too sugary, and it just was really well put together. Anyhow, I've been trying to recreate that with rums that I have or that I purchased, including one Jamaican rum that is at it's called Smith and Cross, and it's at like 58% alcohol. Jamaican rum and Coke do not really go well together if the Jamaican rum is very, very funky. It drinks really well on its own if you're a rum fan, but does not go well with Coke. So lesson learned there.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you like the products coming out of Romero. I've often wondered how they're doing.
Yeah, they seem to have a quiet following, or at least in our part of the city in Kensington, and we don't carry a lot of their products, but it is something that I would like to rectify over time, because what I have had from them has been really good.
Chris.
Way better than they should be.
Appleton Estate goes great with Safeway eggnog. Well,
okay.
Yeah. But it has to be Appleton Estate, and it has to be Safeway. If you got the extra food eggnog, it just ain't gonna work. Okay, back to number 3, pudding whiskey.
Well, that's gotten more sherry bomb adjacent on the nose over time. For me, it's gotten a bit sweeter. Some of those savory notes are not there for me. Yeah, butterscotch. Yeah. Super sweet now. I wonder if the palate will be the same.
Yeah, very licorice-y still, though, for me as well.
Put a Play-Doh in there.
Play-Doh.
That palate is definitely gone more sherried in style as well.
Yeah. Way less drying and tannic for me now than before.
Yeah.
Still salivating. Drawing out the sides of my tongue, but not anything like the first go around. That's more classically a sherry whiskey now, but still not cloying, not the big sweet kind of makes you cringe sherry bomb, but it's a little more traditional, what you would expect now than it was earlier for me.
Yeah, it's just a lovely sweet sherried whiskey. I mean, it's not over the top by any means.
The note says dense, sticky, and delicious.
Lovely leather.
Yeah, Chris is running counter to us. I think he says, drink this one fast, better the first time. I disagree with you, Chris. I think this is better the second time around. It doesn't go into those big, deep, like, all you can drink is sherry notes, but it does go into more dried fruit notes in a nice way. The savory notes have gone more into like earthy, sort of drying tobacco / pipe smoke in a way for me.
I like them both times, first time around and second time around. I'm not sure that I have a preference. I'd be equally happy. If somebody gave me one of each, I would happily drink them.
That's right. So this is Scotch Malt Whisky Society 35.351, the 351st cask from Glen Murray Distillery, bottled by the SMWS. It is 17 years old, and it says 13 years in an ex-bourbon hogshead before undergoing extra maturation in first fill Spanish oak Oloroso hogshead for its remaining 4 years.
And did you catch my comment in my email to you about what the sister cask is on this one?
Yeah, I thought that was really cool, and I haven't cracked that one out for a while. I do have a bottle of that, bottle and a half of that actually still kicking around.
Well, do tell, because
But
that's your
sister,
baby.
yeah, so sister cask on this is a bottle call that was 35.293 called Late Night Pantry Raid, and that was a bottle I got to name that I am still overly proud of, and tell everybody that that I possibly can. It's still a bucket list thing for me, so that was a really cool time. That was from the September of 2021, and also it had another sister cask which was a real showstopper. That was 35.241 back in December of 2019.
Yeah, for anyone in the room who isn't quite sure what Evan is referencing, so every year in September, the society, we don't do it in Canada in September because of the shipping delays, but September in the society world is called the Global Gathering Month, and the idea is members from all around the world either go back to the homeland, to Scotland, to take part in activities at the society members' rooms, or you have events in your own home country. It's September, sort of their gathering month, and they do bottlings for that. And in other countries where it's easier to do, members pick the bottling. That's trickier for us here in Canada for any number of reasons. So for the last few years, we've been sending blind samples to our retailers to give them the chance to write the bottle name and the tasting note. And then Rob and I pick which one we like best, and we submit it to HQ, and the bottle gets bottled. So this was Evan won for the 2021 bottling for Late Night Pantry Raid. So that tasting note and bottle name is by Evan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is the bottle in question, and this was started its life in ex-bourbon, was finished in first fill Outturn. That is the bottle there, if you guys can see it. So it was 14 years old, not 17 like this one, since it was bottled earlier. But very proud of that one for a lot of reasons, but chief among them that I got Hawkins Cheesies as a tasting note on there. So
the 2022 bottling, which we just released a few months ago, was done by Adam Bradshaw from the Strath in Victoria, and his was called Remember, Remember. Adam is British, he's from Northern England, and so his reference was to Guy Fawkes Night, and it was a Lecheg, heavily peated, so that was his Remember, Remember.
Yeah, I was kicking myself on that one. Adam's notes and name were fantastic, but I was kicking myself because when I remember tasting that one, and I never would have guessed it was Lecheg. First time through, I remember tasting it and not getting a whole lot of smoke at all. And then on the bottling of it, it was the smokiness was much more upfront.
Yeah, cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, remember is excellent. Okay, so price on pudding whiskey 35.351 is $241.99, and I did share the link there. Next up, back to the stages set for number 4. How's this one holding up?
Oh God, that nose has gotten even better. Oh, I still think I prefer it to the pudding whiskey.
Yeah,
but it's a close call.
The nose isn't going into raisins, but it's going into Welsh grape juice for me.
Yeah.
When's the last time I had Welsh grape juice, though? My goodness.
Yeah, Welsh is, I should say, not something you have to go to Wales for.
That is very grapey. Oh, yeah.
And the red grape juice specifically on this one for me.
Yeah, purple. Wow, that is very grapey. Or
Chris says Welch's white grape juice on the palate.
Nibs,
red licorice nibs. Well, I'm kind of thinking red or blue Gatorade, that sort of berry note a little bit, but
yeah, it's the all berry. where they don't pick a berry, they just say berry.
But the nibs, that's a good call. When you first open that bag and.
Yeah. Even a bit of that waxiness coming through there too.
It's a very nice whiskey.
Yeah, both of these, this and the pudding whiskey, I found much drier the first time around.
I've done this already.
Second time around, they're both so much juicier, especially this one is super juicy on the palate all of a sudden.
Yep. No dryness for me on this one this time, which I got that sort of dusty dryness the first time around. It's not there this time.
So second time around, what is everybody's favorite? Are you sticking with the one you had originally, or are you switching over? Chris is still picking number one from the first time around, not the second time around, I think.
I'm sticking with the second one. That's just tips it over the edge for me, that one.
Yeah, stage of set got better second time, Chris says. So this is Scotch Malt Whisky Society 55.87. That makes it the 87th cask from a distillery called Royal Brackla in the Highlands. This one is 16 years old. For the cask finish, it says 13 years of age, 2 ex-bourbon hogsheads from the same distillery were combined and filled into a first fill Oloroso ex bodega butt for further maturation and marrying. So Royal Brackla, I said I had a story the first time around. Royal Brackla does have some official bottlings. It's bottled as one of the last great malts in the last great malts line, which is a group of distilleries that are owned by Bacardi / Dewar's. And in that lineup are Craigellachie, Aberfeldy, Macduff / Deveron, Royal Brackla, and one more.
Altmore, did you say
Altmore. Thank you. Altmore. Yep. When they launched in Canada, I was at Willow Park and working there. It wasn't quite at Kensington Wine Market yet, but I went to their sort of well, nowadays it would have been an influencer launch. At that time, it was if you're in the industry, you get invited launch. So I went to it, and it was really cool. It was at one of the old theaters downtown that they use for plays and such. And for each distillery, they had an actor or actress come out in costume, period costume, and talk about the history of the distillery and why it had the name and so on and so forth. So they did it for all 5. They did Craigellachie, they did Altmore, they did Royal Brackla, Macduff, so on and so forth. And I just thought that was a really nice and sort of interesting way to introduce whiskey, instead of being like, well, like we are Kensington Wine Market, where it's like, here, taste it. We are terrible at putting on plays at Kensington Wine Market, so don't ask us to. We are much better at pouring you whiskey, so we'll just stick to that. But yeah, I just thought that was neat, and that's the name, the stage is set, kind of was really evocative with for me because of that.
Oh, I love that. That's great.
Yeah, good story.
I love when the names have real resonance for people. That just makes the whiskey memorable, and chances are, just psychologically, you'll like it more for that reason.
It worked.
This is interesting. This is the first Brackla we've had since 2018, so they don't come along very often.
No, what did you recall what that one was called? Because
yeah, I've got it here. Complex layers of fruit and wood, 55.46. Yeah. And then just that reference to ex bodega butt. I mean, that's pretty specific. And some of you may remember from July, we released Mary Cherry Sherry, which said the same thing in the tasting notes. And that's the society, you know, in terms of their transparency and providing as much information as they can. That's basically telling you that this particular butt, its provenance. So the majority of sherry butts in the whiskey industry are built specifically for the whiskey industry, not the sherry industry, and they are seasoned with sherry by the whiskey industry for use in the whiskey industry. A bodega butt is an actual authentic but from a sherry bodega in Spain that has held sherry for decades, possibly 100 years, and has then made its way into the whiskey industry. They are rare, they are expensive, and when they surface, the tasting note will specify it. So it's just sort of an extra level of cool.
Yeah, there are certain distilleries and certain companies that we're seeing get more specific on this and sort of chasing the actual sherry butts and sherry casks that are still in use or go up for sale. Millstone Distillery in Holland or the Netherlands is actually one. Patrick Van Zwiedem there is a huge fan of sherry casks and getting something authentic. And the difficulty with this is one, a lot of the ex-sherry casks that we see nowadays as they are seasoned are American oak. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but Spanish oak and American oak are very different in style, and do give off different aromas and flavors even before you put anything in them, that do affect the whiskey afterwards as well. And then the other part of that too is the sherry that goes into seasoned sherry casks. Typically, there's no plan on actually bottling that stuff. My understanding is it just gets redistilled or re-rectified and sold off as neutral alcohol in a lot of cases.
Yeah,
or industrial alcohol, sorry.
Yeah, so to see the actual bodega butt use is pretty special because I think it's pretty rare and good for Millstone. They're probably hard to come by, and they probably are more expensive than the already expensive standard sherry butt. So it's fun to see them.
Yeah, absolutely. So price on the Stages set is $262. Next up is we're going back to a tasty morsel. There's still cheese all over the place. Bit of that cheesiness is blown off on the nose for me.
Yep, I'm struggling to. It's not quite as funky as it was the first time around with that funky cheese.
Yeah, the coastalness of it comes out a bit more for me. A little bit more salty sea spray.
Yeah, there's a funkiness there.
You're still getting funky?
Yeah.
That palate still kills. The palate might actually be a little bit more tightly wound the second time around for me.
Oh, interesting.
Get the tar.
All right.
Get the fish.
Yep. There's what I had that very first time around with that little sip last week, where peat may be a stretch, but the tar,
Yeah.
I think there is a thread of peat in there, but yeah, it's definitely there's a tarriness.
Well, it would kind of make sense because the distillery does do both styles, both peated and unpeated runs. It could have been very, very adjacent peated casks in the warehouse too. So this is Scotch Malt Whisky Society 149.4, making it the fourth cask we've seen from the SMWS for Ardnamurchan Distillery. So being Ardnamurchan, it is on the younger side because the distillery is on the younger side. This is 6 years old, from the 9th of July 2016. And is this the first unpeated Ardnamurchan we've had? I can't recall.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. It's crazy because peated whiskey, I can understand being approachable at a young age because peat kind of hides the flaws really well. Having unpeated whiskey at 6 years old that is this well put together is impressive.
It's interesting because at Holyrood, when we do peated whiskey and then we switch to unpeated, we have to do blank runs in between because we find that you know, for at least 7 distillations after we stop using peated malt, we can still detect peat in the new make. So this may have been, even though it's non-peated, it may have been one of those runs after they did some peated, and it's still got some threads in there, or it's just still in the system.
And you'd said that, Evan, in your email back to me when I was asking about, when we were talking about this one, and you said exactly that.
Yeah. And I don't get the peat right now from it. It does have a bit of that feeling or texture on the palate of it, though, for me, with a bit of more earthy spice coming through. But going along what you guys are talking about there, I can very clearly remember, I think it was a Kalila 15-year-old that they had released that was in there from their unpeated run, said unpeated on the label, and very, very much was not unpeated on the nose and palate for me. It is something, I mean, try and hide it from your wife if you've been drinking peated whiskey. I think the stills have the same problem, essentially.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall at the tasting panel session where they decided to give this a flavor profile of juicy oak and vanilla, because I think there's enough interesting things going on here that it could have probably slotted into a number of things. Oily and coastal, for instance,
or LP,
or maybe even lightly peated. But JOV for me is, when I saw that, I thought, I mean, I know that distillery does unpeated runs, but when I tried it, I thought, boy, that's really interesting.
No, I love those bottles that happen where it goes like counter to what you expect based on that, like the quiet confidence which we were talking about before the tasting, or before we went live, which is a 25-year-old Chegg, which is definitely not under the green categories. Does have some peat, but boy, is it soft because of age, and definitely does fall into other categories because of it. Yeah, it's fun when you see that.
Yeah. So this is, you'll see from in the booklet, the label is different. This is like the one from last month, Coal Scuttle of Jam and Treacle. This is another one of the New Wave series that the SMWS has done. Yeah, there's a better shot of the label. So they've gone out on a charm offensive to a lot of the younger distilleries around Scotland and are several years ago, and we're now seeing these releases come to fruition. So Glasgow Distillery, Ardnamurchan, they've gone to England, to Cotswolds. So there's a whole series of them. So we'll see a few more releases of these under the New Wave series heading. The idea being, you know, there may be a little bit collectible, buy 2, one to keep, one to open, but yeah, they're just having some fun getting the new distilleries out there.
Yeah, even maybe you said it and maybe I missed it, but I think the last Ardnamurchan we had was New Wave as well.
Yeah, that was the first one. This is the second. Yeah. So this is actually going back, because it wasn't the last release 149.7 or so.
Yeah,
we're going backwards number wise.
Yeah,
we do that
from time to time.
Yeah.
So 149.4 from Ardnamurchan, a tasty morsel, is 195. Okay, back to parallel bars of sweetness and smoke.
Chris, it's about time you cleaned out your high school gym bag. Just saying.
Oh, still a quiet, soft nose. It has not changed much for me.
Part of the time capsule, Rob.
Okay, if that's how you want to look at it.
Pity the person that has to open that time capsule.
Yeah, that's Chris. Some things are best left to time when it comes down to it. Yeah, it is still very muted on the nose.
Oh, and a really soft palate. The peat is even softer. It's still really elegant. Yeah, the peat just kind of comes in quietly and sits there. Really soft.
Yeah, it doesn't have that same spicy build that it did the first time around for me. It's more integrated for the whole finish, where it's not just going from note to note to note. But gorgeous, gorgeous palate. I love that sort of heathery, slightly honeyed style and that floral note that you get with the fruit, and still some, like, we'll get into age here in a second, but some very upfront malt and grain notes that are coming through there still for me, which is really cool. Very cereal driven.
I'm getting the eucalyptus much more now than I did the first time around. That still with that menthol eucalyptus thing. All of it intertwined with the peat. That's, yeah, beautiful, really elegant. So
this is, we are in the Highland Islands now. This is Orkney, of course. Scotch Malt Whiskey Society 4.285, the 285th cask from Highland Park Distillery, bottled by the SMWS. This is 20 years old, and we've seen probably 3 or 4 other bottles at this point. We started with some ex-bourbon casks and then finished it in one kind of thing. Is that all part of the same parcel or separate parcels?
I don't know that, to be sure. I wouldn't be surprised if it's all part of the same parcel, but that's just total speculation. Don't know.
I've been a big fan of these when I first saw it, and this, I think it would have been like last spring, like spring of 2022 maybe, where we started seeing batches of this. I was kind of skeptical, but this whole run of Highland Parks that we've had over the last year or two have been great. I personally love seeing Highland Park and ex-bourbon. I've never really enjoyed Highland Park and ex-bourbon or non-sherry casks when they've been official bottlings, but when it's independent bottlings, they tend to be stunning.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I know there's been a whole, as you say, there was old-fashioned, old school.
Old school
I've
cool,
forgotten.
wasn't it?
Old school something. Then there was more recently, particularly Peculiar Potpourri, which we poured at your festival last week and was a huge hit, and has been my favorite of the Highland Park releases of probably the last year. And it's been a little bit overlooked, and I don't quite understand why. Other than maybe the word peculiar is in the name, and optics and perception, people perceive things.
Peculiar Potpourri, I bought it in September. That bottle is empty.
Yeah, it's outstanding.
That was just, it was so good.
Yep. It's absolutely outstanding, and it's just kind of lingering around, and I don't get why. So we showcased it at the festival, and people were blown away. But this whole string of Highland Parks have been really lovely, and this at 20 years just even takes it up a notch. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So if that Potpourri one is still available, I could be enticed to buy another bottle.
Well, throw the link up, Evan.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
It must be. That's why we poured it at the festival.
I was going to say that. I think. Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
That's not a bad deal. Like it's not a horrible value for Highland Park.
No. So particularly Peculiar Potpourri was 4.361. It is a low stock. It is $180. That one is much younger than this one. We also still have a little bit of old school with a twist, which was one of the other ones.
That's what it was.
Which is 190.
Yeah.
Those ones are much older than this, or younger than this one. This guy is 20 years old, and it is $405. I think the potpourri thing, it's because people see potpourri, they assume it's like a Jeopardy category, and they get daunted by the idea of diving into it.
It's interesting. It's a stunner, that one.
Well, potpourri, that's like hippie whiskey, right? Like,
that's right. No, that's when they put patchouli on the label. Then it's hippie whiskey.
Particularly peculiar patchouli.
Potpourri is your grandma's whiskey.
Yeah.
No, that's doily whiskey.
Doily whiskey. Okay.
Dusty doily whiskey. Chris, if you ever get to label a whiskey, I hope it's that, because that's awesome.
Potpourri is, we don't know what the frick is in here. So just I don't know.
Dusty sitting in your grandma's bathroom.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing about that word. Potpourri just conjures up all kinds of things. It has certain connotations that come along with that word, and then you put the word peculiar in front of it, and now you're thinking, well, what the hell am I in for? Well, you're in for a great drama is what you're in for. But yeah,
I figured it out. I know what potpourri is. Tier 1 imports. They're bankrupt.
That's right.
What it is. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, all of a sudden now all I can smell is overpriced wicker baskets. I don't know why. Okay, on to last but not least of the night, which is a firefighter's reward.
Oh man.
Yeah, this one's holding up nicely on the nose.
Oh yeah. With more of the sherry notes coming through for me now than before, where it was just sort of a big peat hit. Now I can discern more things.
Yeah, this is like bacon and campfire coffee right now for me on the nose.
Candied bacon, though, there's a sweetness to it.
Mm-hmm. Burnt ends, I think I mentioned. Did I mention on this one? Because I'm still getting that.
Oh, I'm really getting the brininess. There's almost a fishiness that wasn't there the first time around at the back of my throat in the finish. Yeah, that seashore smell of seaweed and fish.
Yeah, fish, and then like it's like you're barbecuing fish, and there's dill on it. Because I hit a dill all of a sudden now on the palate too.
Graham smells like a jetty. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That note you're getting, Evan, I think is maybe brought and blood way back like 60 years ago when they were really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
I almost think I preferred it the first time around.
I think I did too.
And maybe
there was water in it, so
that's true. We did put some water in
we
it.
put the water in it.
It's not as rugged this time around,
right.
for sure.
It was such a pow for me the first time that I really enjoyed. It took me by surprise so much, and now it's I was kind of hoping for that pow again. It's not quite there, but water and time and
water's knocked it
it's
back
calmed down a little bit. It's still really yummy, but I didn't have that.
Mm-hmm. The sherry with this distillery sometimes, especially for peated versions, tends to go more into barbecue notes, which I get, but it also tends to kill a lot of the oiliness that I get on the palate when it's from ex-bourbon. The oiliness is coming around more out on the second time around for this, where I just didn't get a lot of that the first time through.
Okay.
So this is from Iowa. This is Scotch Malt Whiskey Society 10.252, making it the 252nd cask from Bunnahabhain Distillery. And it does have a couple different sister casks. From December of 2022, we had a Slice of Peat Heaven, which was 10.213. And in February of 2021, we had 10.190, which was Make Moyne a Devil.
Mm-hmm. That might have been a festival bottling.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Isla Festival bottling,
yeah. I think that was, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to run counter to you guys. I actually prefer it the second time around.
Okay, cool.
I
think you're just a contrarian.
I am, when it comes down to it. I find I like the ruggedness. This one, second time around, is a little bit easier to dive into. But still kind of checks all the boxes for what I'm looking for from peated Bunnahabhain. So this is 9 years old.
Weird one. The first time around, it's only been sitting in the glass for a few minutes, right? So that's kind of like, oh, it's the 7 o'clock dram, we're good to party. This time around, like 90 minutes later, whatever it is, it's like you're just getting ready to chill and relax and go to bed and read your book, right? It's that, because I noticed, Kelly, like your reaction when you tasted it, it was like, wow, right? And it was beautiful because it's absolutely, it's like you poured me 2 different whiskeys, really.
Yeah.
Right, and each has its own purpose. So if I'm I want to relax before going to bed with this one, I will let it sit in the glass for half an hour. I'll go and do something else for 30 minutes before I go and drink it. Otherwise, I'll pour it and I'll start sipping right away.
Yeah, it kind of sums up this tasting in a way for me, where the theme for this tasting has almost been like the the Italian opera or drama masks, where you have the happy face and the sad face, where you're almost getting two different styles of whiskey from the same glass, spread out by 60 minutes in a cool fashion. There's been multiple drams in the lineup where we've commented and we've gotten comments about how much they've changed in a cool fashion.
I don't remember the last time we've gone through a tasting where it's like, I mean, I think out of the 7, at least 4 have dramatically changed in a way that you wouldn't necessarily have predicted that they would change.
Yeah, that sort of duality, as you say, Evan, the turning the sides of the two sides of the face.
It's and even that, and I think I can't remember who it was. I think it was you, Evan, that said, "Oh, I disagree with you that I like the first better than the second, or whatever it was." Or Kelly, you had said something as well. But again, it's 2 different drams, right? It's like, oh, if I'm in this mood, I want to drink it real quick. Not in terms of chugging it and doing shooters, but I want to drink it right away. Right? Whereas if I'm in this mood, I'll let it sit for 30 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever else it is. And I'm finding that with the last one, the Firefighter's Rewards, same thing. Really, really, I won't say weird, but really interesting this tasting. Like we're about 4th of dram.
Totally.
Well, we're all about, value for money, Chris. So really you're getting 2 whiskeys in one. So
That's right.
Bang for your buck for sure.
Yeah.
Do those come in 1.4-liter bottles?
Yeah. No, but the upside is they didn't bottle it in 2 375 milliliter bottles too. So we've seen companies do that and have trouble unloading those bottles afterwards. So
yeah.
Did
you give the deets on this one, Evan?
Yeah, so 10.252, 9 years old, 9-year-old whiskey from Islay, spent 5 years in an ex-bourbon hogshead, extra maturation and first fill PX for the remainder, which is quite a long time, almost half of its life, and still comes out at 58%. Price is $205. I gotta say that was a really fun lineup, and we talked a lot about the last Outturn being a lot darker in style, both in color of the whiskey and in profile even. This one wasn't even like all light and fresh by any means, but it was cool how it did have that dichotomy to it, running all the way through.
Yeah. Lots of great Christmas gifts here. People, go do your Christmas shopping. Buy a great bottle of rum or whiskey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, actually, before I take off, I should just give you you guys the lineup. So I did share everything. If you go on our website and just search for SMWS DEC 2023, that does give you the entire lineup all on one page. But I'll put it up here as well just to make things easier. Okay, here we go. There is the entire lineup. It should be live and ready for order. Thank you, Rob and Kelly, for joining me on this journey. Thank you to the rest of you as well. Yeah. I guess I'll see you guys on Thursday. We do have a few tastings that I think are sold out, but we do have a few more virtual tastings that have just been launched for December, just because we're not busy enough with calendar tastings. So thank you all, and we will see you soon. Take care, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Bye.
Have a good night.